and welcome to our weekly market analysis for this week, where we will look at the outlook, what we are looking at for the week, how the week had closed, and what we are expecting for the current week. So we're going to be starting with the USD, and we like to look at the index of the dollar first, which is the dollar currency index, DXY, okay? But before we go, let's also look at what important reports and news announcement we're expecting in the market for this week, because it's a good thing to have an idea of what's happening in the economy. This would help you to analyze and maybe at least pay attention. If you are not a fundamental trader, you're technical, you want to pay attention to this news at what time they are coming out, so that maybe you pause your trading for that period. And if you're a fundamental and technical analyst, you want to analyze them as well, have an idea of how they would have impact on your markets, analyze your own expectations and see whether they meet up with this and know how you want to trade within this week. Because of course, this current week, we have a lot of interesting upcoming news. Okay, so let's take a look at them. What do we have? The most important ones that I like to pay attention to this week are the interest rate decisions, especially. Let's look at this. We have the Fed interest rate decision for the USD. The crude oil inventory is good, to FOMC statements. These are also very important. But on Wednesday, we're especially expecting this, and it's very important. On Tuesday, we're expecting the core CPI month over month for Canadian dollar. That's also of high level of importance, and we're expecting that. For Eurozone, we're expecting the ECB president's speech. That usually is also of high level of importance, and we want to pay attention to them. How about Tuesday? Do we have anyone we're expecting? RBA for Australian dollar, RBA meeting. We're expecting that. Okay, so Tuesday as well, we're expecting this to be president's speech. It's important. People like to pay attention to the speech to have an idea of the plans and what's happening and all that. Fed interest rate decision, very important. On Wednesday, we're expecting that 7 p.m. GMT +1. That's my zone, but that's 6 p.m. GMT. So you can look at what time you are with GMT and add or subtract based on your time zone, but that's 6 p.m. GMT, okay? Interest rate decision for US dollar. Then we have interest rate decision for Japanese yen as well. On Thursday, we have the monetary policy statements, all right, all of them around the same time for Wednesday. I have filtered this for only high impact news. The interest rate decision for yen is medium impact news, and that's why it's not showing now. So if I filter it back to show the moderate volatility expected news, and that would be, you would see the interest rate decision for Thursday there for yen, okay? That's also of high importance. It is not rated as very high impact expected because it's, yen is being the lone range or lone wolf, let's put it that way, the lone wolf among all the other major currencies. There hasn't been any major change in the monetary policy. The interest rate has not been increased for a long time. It's been minus 10 basis points, and that's what it is since then. So let's see whether we are going to see an increase this time around, even if it's just 10 basis points. That's going to make some huge impact on yen, okay? So let's pay attention to it. That's on Thursday, and that Thursday as well, we're also expecting the Swiss National Bank interest rate decision. That's for CHF, the Swiss franc. We are also expecting British pound interest rate decision. So there's a lot of interest rate decision we're expecting this week. We're also expecting things like core retail sales, core inflation, CPI. All of this usually have impact on the market because they will tell us what's the inflation rate like, what's the government doing about it, what's the interest rate going to be based on the inflation, what's the economic growth like, and all of that. So let's move on. Let's go take a look at what's happening with dollar. dollar has been quite a strong one. We had this line here about 3-4 weeks ago when we were looking at this zone. I was okay, this is the highest point it got to. Is it going to break? But it broke above it. It retraced down a bit at some point when we had the CPI. Was it the PCPI we had that about 2 weeks ago? Yes, I think we had this. No, it was when we had this. This PCPI was this last week when we had that movement up, and this week I started up again. It's still moving up. Dollar is quite strong compared with the other currencies, but I think the interest rate decision this week would help us see more movement, whether it's going to go up or it's going to go down. Looking at the interest rate decision will help us make better, see better movements in the market. But I know that it's likely going to be of high volatility, so we want to pay attention to that as well. For now, the USD is high. Last week had closed more like an indecision candle with a full big bodied bullish candle, but it has wick above and below. So it shows that the buyers are somehow rejected the vol toward the close of that candle, and the sellers got rejected below. So let's see, is this going to continue up or is it going to continue down? For now, it's bullish. If you're looking at it now, dollar is bullish, but how long is that going to be sustained is the question, because we know that there's going to be interest rate decision this week, but the tone has been hawkish. Everybody is expecting that maybe it's going to be one full percentage, 100 basis points compared to the 75 basis point that is being expected. And if that happens, of course, would expect that dollar would jump even higher. So let's see what's going to happen during the week. It's help us make a decision. Let's go take a look at BTC. What's happening with BTC? BTC has been down all the way down. It's bearish. I had a support here that I was paying attention to, but what do we have? What do we have? Last week closed around that support, but this week I started by the support. If I see close, but maybe the daily candle close below that support, of course, that's going to be a sell for me. You see that support? It's also looking kind of like head and shoulder. However, for me, I like to trade head and shoulder as a reversal pattern, not as a continuation pattern. So usually when it is seen in a strong downtrend like this, a long-term downtrend, it may not last for too long. So let's see how that is. But based on all I am seeing on the chart, dollar is making, Bitcoin is diving to the downside for now. There is no indication for a change. The stock market is down. Bitcoin has been following the stock market for about 2 years now since the breakout of the pandemic. So let's see, is it going to continue to follow the US stock market, or is it going to stop at some point? If it continues to follow the US stock market, what are we saying? If dollar gets very strong based on the expectations, then the stock market may go down, may crash to the downside a little more. And if that happens, and if cryptocurrency continues to follow the market, then we would expect continuation to the downside. So that's what I am. If I am forced to take a trade, of course, I'll be in the downside until there's any serious change. How about dollar? We had a strong support here based on the weekly. Let's go to the weekly time frame. On the weekly time frame, we have this strong support here that has been touched a couple of times in the past. Last week couldn't really break below that support. It was below it at some point, but by the close of business on Friday, price had gone back to that support. So it closed just by the support. But now, this Monday, we already have price playing below it. Is it going to continue down, or is this just going to play around a little bit on the bottom side and push the upside? I think still it is that interest rate decision that will help us determine better. If it's the USD gets really strong, of course, we would expect this to move down a little bit. But that may also mean by the time price is playing below here, that gold gets too cheap, okay, for the production cost. It may get too cheap, and so we may see some big move back to the upside at some point, which may be that we would see gold getting to this support, okay, and getting to this support and breaking back to the upside big time, okay, or maybe this area, because you see that was where we have this engulfing bullish candle moving from. So it is possible that Gold get there again this time around, and we see some big movement, or at least some movement to the upside. Okay, so that's where it is. It is below, and if dollar gets stronger, I would expect that gold will go all the way to around the 1,500 area. Okay, let's see US oil. US oil, what are we having? Also bearish. Last week had closed bearish. It's still bearish for me. USD Canadian dollar, what do we have? Bullish. We had last week closing as an engulfing bullish candle, and you would see that close happening above. Sorry, I'm trying to remove some of this. Okay, you see that's happening above our resistance here. It has pushed up again, retraced with a bearish candle, but last week can close as an engulfing bullish candle. Now it's getting to another zone, another resistance zone. Is it going to get there and point back down, or is it going to break to the upper side? Let's pay attention. Ethereum, I'm looking at it the same way as Bitcoin, so let's not bother with that. Let's go to Euro USD. USD, of course, this is all bearish. It's still bearish, but let's see, is this bullish engulfing? Is it going to be broken back to the bottom side? That's what I'm looking at now. I feel we may have some move down, and then we have continuation to the upside again. AUD USD bearish as well. The last candle had engulfed the bullish candle before it as a bearish candle, and it is still coming down. All of these are boiling down to the strength of USD, which is still quite strong at this time. If USD gets weaker, maybe we will see that change in direction happening, but it is still strong at this time. British pound USD also bearish. All of them are just really bearish at this time. So the first half of the week, I would say before the interest rate decision on Wednesday, maybe we would see continuation of this bearishness, and then after that news is when we really decide where is this going. Is this going to continue down or up? So for all the USD pair, what are we seeing? Bearishness. Okay, NZD USD bearish, USD CHF bullish. See how the week had closed, although we had an engulfing bearish candle 2 weeks ago, but last week had closed as a bullish pin bar. So I'm expecting bullishness unless there's a change in the strength of USD. How about USD yen? Well, for this one, because of the two pin bars here on the weekly, the way the last week had closed like a bearish pin bar, the week before I had a long week above as well. I was expecting that we're going to see some continuation to the downside. Well, that may happen if, for instance, yen gives us some shock with an increase in the interest rate decision, and maybe if USD gets a little bit weak, of course, we'll see some big drop on this area. Okay, so what do we see? But now it's still looking bullish. Euro British pound bullish. It's looking bullish. British pound is quite weak compared with the other currency at this time. And I think that's why we are seeing this, because it isn't like euro itself is quite so strong. But we are seeing some bullishness, and that's what we have here. Euro AUD, what do we have? We have a double bottom, and we have in looks like this is moving still to the upside. Euro Canadian dollar also looking bullish, but around the resistance. So maybe we may still see some continuation to the downside. This looks bullish, but how did last week close? Last week had closed with a bearish pin bar. Let me remove all that I have there so that you can see it more clearly. Okay, so last week had closed with a bearish pin bar, which could indicate that we'll see bearishness this week. So it's possible my bias on this is bearish just because of this and the fact that the buyers keep getting rejected around this resistance. So this is a strong resistance zone, and we may see bearishness from there. How about this one? Well, I was expecting to see bearishness on this, but it looks like we are still bullish. Okay, so we pay attention. Let's see how this one goes as well. Well, Euro CHF is bearish. Euro CHF has been stronger. The Swiss franc has been stronger than both the euro and the British pound that are from the same zone, and it's still looking bearish, although we had an indecision candle closing last week, but the bias is still bearish until we see a clear bounce from this place, because we're around the support now. It's possible that it breaks the bottom. It's also possible that it bounces and begin to go up. So going to the lower time frame would help us find a decision around that, because if you see the best got rejected strongly from this bottom in the last week, so we may see some move to the upside from there, but let's pay attention and see what we see. CAD yen, well, for that one, I think it's looking a little bit bearish because of the way the candle had closed last week, closed like a bearish spin bar. Maybe we'll see some correction first, but I think this looks a little bit bearish. This has been an uptrending market, but it's looking bearish. I think, we were seeing some threat from the yen, the Japanese yen official, that there's going to be an intervention by the government, and if intervention happens, that will make yen a bit scarce. So when the supply is reduced and demand gets higher than supply, what happens? The price is going to increase, because the yen has really been weak against the other currencies in the recent time. Let's see, for British pound yen, I also see some movement to the downside, which in this case I'm saying bearishness. Why? We see this, the bulls keep getting rejected here. So we were having higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. But what do we have here? Looks like the high this time around is equal high. It's not forming a new high to the upside. So let's say maybe this is going to continue. However, we may see some correction before we see that. So let's pay attention and see how this goes. British pound AUD, well, this looks bearish. We have this engulfing bearish candle breaking down here. And since then, there hasn't been any real bullish movement. There has been correction, and which is looking more like a flag pattern, very flag to me. And so I'm expecting the way the week had closed last week, still suggesting bearishness for me. So I'm expecting to see some bearishness there. Let's go to British pound Swiss franc, looking all bearish. British pound Swiss franc, by the way, when was the last time where we had right now? 1974. That's some 48 years ago. That's a very low point that we have now for British pound, and I think a quite strong one for Swiss franc. You see that for a long time we've never been there where we are. So let's look at it from the monthly. Maybe you see what I am talking about. So on the monthly, see, when was the last time we're here? 1974 was the last time we were where we are now. 1974. Okay, so let's see, is this going to continue all the way down, or we see a change from where we are now? Well, we pay attention. Let's see. British pound, Canadian dollar, what do we have? Let's change this back to the weekly. Okay, this also still looking bearish. It's looking bearish from how the week had closed last. Let's see. Okay, all of them looking like indecision, or maybe we can see some change at some point, but there was an indecision candle last week. The support got broken. We see correction, indecision. Let's see how that would close. GBP NZ, the indecision, we had seen bearishness, and then we see some gap, we see some indecision candle. Maybe this is going to continue that, because the classic candle is still a bearish candle. AUD NZD looking all bullish, but around a strong resistance now. Let's see, maybe at some point the NZD will take over. AUD yen bullish. This looks like a bullish close outside of this zone, and we had correction last week. Maybe we are going to see continuation to the upside now, but this is a clear bearish candle, which we also identify continuation. So it depends on how this closes. You may want to use maybe a trend line, then a break below the trend line would mean that the sellers are continuing in their strength, because yen is really trying to be strong. So let's see what happens. But if you see any bullish close, maybe a daily close, I probably would expect that this bullishness is going to continue. Lastly, let's take a look at CHF yen. That one I really like because of the way the last candle has closed bearish. That's closed bearish. Now it's moving up, but I think it's not going to last long up there. We may see some continuation. I'm expecting to see some bearishness this week. That's my bias, and this is how we come to the end of our discussion, our outlook on the weekly outlook. If you have any question, you want me to explain anything to you, please do well to ask in the chat box. Please, if you've not subscribed to this channel, you want to do so. If you are looking to learn to do trading right, reach out to me and I'll be more than willing and ready to take you home. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your week.